Do you remember the 80s and 90s? Back then, Las Vegas was the one place in America where a factory worker or a retired teacher could live like a king for a weekend on just a few $100s. It was an unwritten social contract. You brought your money. They rolled out the red carpet. Parking was always free. The buffets were cheap and plentiful, and the dealers actually knew your name. But if you set foot on the Las Vegas Strip in 2025, you know the brutal truth. That era is dead. What replaced it is not luxury. It is absolute nickel and diming. Just look at the real reviews from this month alone. Broken elevators, hallway carpets smelling of mildew, and cold automated kiosks replacing a welcoming smile. Even worse, the ridiculous resort fees can now cost more than the room rate itself. The Las Vegas news headlines still trumpet record-breaking gambling revenue, but they willfully ignore the rot right in front of our eyes. These iconic buildings that defined the city's skyline are now just hollow shells, run by the extreme cost-cutting mindset of massive corporations. The Dunes is gone. The Sands is history. And just recently, the Mirage and Tropicana were officially wiped off the map. So, who is next? This is not a travel video complaining about prices. This is a forensic autopsy of a failing economy. In the next few minutes, I am going to use financial data to prove why these 5 iconic casinos are counting down their final days by 2026. They are not dying from bad luck. They are being killed by cold-blooded greed on the balance sheets. If you want to understand why your favorite haunts are disappearing, stick with me. We are starting with the ones on life support and ending with the names that have already received their death sentence. Rank number 5. Harrah's, the corporate orphan. We begin our list right in the center of the strip with a name that used to be the working man's best friend, Harrah's. Rewind the clock 2 decades, and Harrah's was the embodiment of affordable hospitality. It was not flashy like the Bellagio, and it did not put on airs like Caesar's Palace, but it was honest. It was the place where you could book a clean room and get a square meal without taking out a second mortgage. It was, for a long time, the blue-collar heart of Las Vegas. But today, that heart is barely beating due to a terminal disease, systemic neglect. Let us look at the reality of 2024 and 2025. On platforms like TripAdvisor or Yelp, Harrah's manages to float a 3.5 to 4-star average. But do not let those aggregate numbers fool you. When you dig into the detailed reviews, a disturbing pattern emerges. Stale smoke embedded deep in the fabrics, hallway carpets that are worn down to the threads, and a ventilation system that seems to have given up the ghost a decade ago. While the facility is stuck in the past, the pricing is chasing the luxury tier. Room rates here are climbing 10 to 15% annually. Some of that is just Vegas inflation, sure. But what really enrages the longtime regulars are the cold, hard surcharges. You're looking at $25 to $35 a day just to use the mini fridge for your own water, and a breakfast buffet that is now pushing $40. To be fair, this is the new industry standard post-COVID. MGM does it. Wynn does it. But here is the problem. When you pay those fees at the Wynn, you're paying for luxury. When you pay them at Harrah's, you're paying Cadillac prices for a beat-up used car. It represents a total collapse of value. Why is this happening? The answer lies in the ruthless cash flow strategy of the parent company, Caesars Entertainment. While they poured $500 million into renovating the Horseshoe and upgrading flagships like Caesar's Palace in 2024 and 2025, Harrah's received only the bare minimum maintenance. The role of Harrah's in the eyes of corporate executives is clear. It is an aging cash cow, being milked dry to service debt, not to nurture the future. The result is a heartbreaking exodus. According to trend data from the Nevada Gaming Control Board, their most loyal demographic, retirees and veterans, are slowly walking away. They are not vanishing. They are being forced to lower their standards, moving to cheaper, more run-down properties like Circus Circus. The outlook for Harrah's in 2026 is bleak. Sitting on prime real estate, but rotting from the inside out, it faces two paths. Either it gets sold off to pay down corporate debt, or it gets gutted and rebranded into a non-gaming hotel to slash operating costs. Whichever scenario plays out, the Harrah's we once loved is effectively dead. But if Harrah's decline is a result of cold calculation, the next name on our list is the victim of something far scarier: irreversible obsolescence. Let us cross the street to a fake castle that is literally rotting away. We leave the cold calculations of Caesars behind, only to arrive at another tragedy in the MGM Resorts portfolio, the Excalibur. When it opened its drawbridge in 1990, this was not just a hotel. It was the loudest declaration of the family-friendly Vegas era. A Technicolor medieval castle promising to whisk visitors away to King Arthur's court. It was a time when Las Vegas genuinely believed it could be Disneyland in the desert. But 3 decades later, the magic spell has long since broken. Today's Excalibur is not a castle. It is a crumbling relic with a bad paint job, a classic case of putting lipstick on a pig. Step into the main lobby in 2025, and you're not greeted by royal luxury, but by the signature scent of neglect. It is a heavy cocktail of industrial cleaner, decades of stale cigarette smoke, and the musty funk of carpets that have seen too many footsteps and not nearly enough steam cleaning. Guests frequently report that the elevators here are less of a convenience and more of a gamble. They are often overcrowded, painfully slow, or simply out of order, turning the trip to your room into an exhausting pilgrimage. Inside the towers, the interiors seem frozen in 1990, complete with chipped furniture and bathroom fixtures that have yellowed with age. Why would a giant like MGM Resorts let a property on such prime real estate rot from the inside out? The answer is brutal. Excalibur is a cash cow in its final stage of life. MGM knows they do not need to compete on quality here. The strategy is a massive bait and switch, keeping the room rates artificially low to lure in budget-conscious travelers or families who do not know any better. Once you are through the door, you're nickel and dimed by resort fees that are insultingly high compared to the service you actually receive. The capital expenditure, the money spent on real renovations, has been near zero for years. It is clear they are not trying to save the castle. The bitter reality is that the value of the Excalibur is no longer in those fake turrets. The value is in the dirt beneath them. Sitting on the corner of Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard, this building is just a placeholder in a holding pattern. It has devolved from a family resort into an industrial-scale motel, where a good night's sleep is sacrificed for the corporation's profit margins. Excalibur is effectively waiting for its own death sentence. The day maintenance costs finally exceed revenue, it will be bulldozed to make way for a new luxury complex. Until then, it stands as a sad, decaying reminder of a time when Vegas tried to be innocent. So, I have to ask you, have you stayed at the Excalibur recently? Did you feel like royalty, or did you feel like a resource being mined for fees? Let me know your experience in the comments below. But if you think a rotting castle is depressing, wait until you see what is happening next door. If Excalibur is a tragedy of neglect, our next stop is a tragedy of bad timing and even worse geography. We are leaving the chaotic energy of the Strip entirely to visit a place that feels like it is stranded on a desert island, the Rio. There was a time when being off-strip was not a death sentence. it was a feature. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, the Rio was the cool, sophisticated tropical oasis that locals actually loved. It had energy. It had the best seafood buffet in town. And for nearly 2 decades, it was the holy ground of the World Series of Poker. Every summer, the biggest names in gambling walked these halls, bringing millions of dollars and invaluable prestige with them. But in 2022, the poker players packed up and moved to the Horseshoe on the Strip. And when they left, they took the soul of this building with them. Today, the Rio stands like a ghost town. Cut off from the lifeblood of the Strip by the massive I-15 highway, nobody accidentally walks into the Rio anymore. In a city built on convenience, you have to make a conscious, difficult choice to go here. And in 2025, fewer and fewer people are making that choice. The new owners, Dreamscape Companies, promised a renaissance. They bought the property from Caesars and launched a massive renovation of the Ipanema Tower, trying to wash away years of deferred maintenance. But behind the fresh coat of paint and the new carpets lies a financial ticking time bomb. To fund these renovations in an economy crushed by high interest rates, Dreamscape had to resort to a massive $176 million CPACE loan. Now, for those of you who know business, you know that CPACE is not just a standard bank loan. It is a government-enabled financing structure that places a lien directly on the property itself, repaid through property taxes. Think of it as a second mortgage on steroids. This debt is the invisible hand strangling the hotel. Every dollar of revenue the Rio generates is now fighting an uphill battle against debt service. This creates a desperate operational reality. They do not just want guests. They need immediate cash flow to survive. But how do you generate cash flow when you are an island isolated from tourist foot traffic? You have to rely on the locals, the people who actually live here. But locals have long memories. They remember years of decline under Caesar's ownership. They remember the broken slot machines, the dirty rooms, and the unforgivable sin of closing that famous buffet. Winning them back is not just about installing new lights or a fancy food hall. It is about trust. And in this town, once trust is broken, buying it back is more expensive than any renovation. If Dreamscape cannot pull off a miracle and convince the local population to return, that $176 million loan will turn from a lifeline into a noose. Bankruptcy is not just a possibility here. It is becoming a mathematical probability. The Rio teaches us a harsh lesson about the new corporate Las Vegas. Ambition without location is just a fast way to burn money. But if the Rio is dying because it is too far away, our next entry is dying right in the middle of the action. It is proof that you can have the best location in the world and still fail if your foundation is rotten. If the Rio is dying from isolation, our next stop is dying from something far more sinister, pure, unadulterated greed. We are heading to the North Strip, to the big top itself, Circus Circus. For millions of Americans, especially those of you watching who grew up in the 70s and 80s, this was not just a casino. It was a rite of passage. It was the last affordable playground for the working class, a place where a family could experience the Vegas dream without needing a high roller budget. But if you walk through those doors in 2025, hold on to your wallet and maybe hold your breath. The dream has turned into a nightmare. Circus Circus today is no longer a resort. It is effectively a slumlord property sitting on the most famous boulevard in the world. Since billionaire Phil Ruffin acquired this property, the operating strategy has shifted from hospitality to extraction. The business model is brutally simple. Keep costs at absolute zero and harvest whatever cash is left in the pockets of budget travelers who do not read online reviews. The signs of neglect are not hidden. They are the main attraction. Walk the hallways of the manor rooms, and you are greeted by the stench of mildew and marijuana. We are seeing report after report of roof leaks that are fixed with buckets on the floor rather than repairs. The air conditioning units rattle like dying engines, and the carpets look like biological hazards. But the mold is the least of your worries. The real crisis here is safety. Throughout 2024 and heading into 2025, Circus Circus has been plagued by alarming reports of security failures. We are talking about theft, fights, and a general sense of lawlessness that permeates the property after dark. When a casino cuts corners on security staffing to save a few dollars on the hourly payroll, they are not just cutting costs, they are gambling with your safety. It is heartbreaking to see. This place used to be where we brought our children. Now it is a place you warn your friends to avoid. Phil Ruffin is running Circus Circus like a used car that he plans to drive until the wheels fall off. He is betting that the land value will eventually skyrocket enough to justify demolishing it. But until that day comes, he is content to let it rot, extracting millions in profit while the building literally crumbles around his guests. It is a ticking time bomb of liability. And frankly, it is a disgrace to the legacy of Las Vegas. But believe it or not, Circus Circus is only number 2. There is one more property that tragically captures the collapse of the Vegas dream. It is a place that was supposed to be a paradise, but has become the ultimate symbol of a project doomed from the start. Let us move to our final destination, the saddest place on the Strip. And finally, we arrive at number 1. We end our journey not with a property that is dying, but with one that has already been executed. We are standing on the sacred ground of the Mirage. To understand why this is the ultimate tragedy, you have to understand what this place was. When Steve Wynn opened these doors in 1989, he did not just open a hotel, he invented modern Las Vegas. Before the Mirage, Vegas was a cheap gambling town. After the Mirage, it became a luxury resort destination for the world. Every hotel we have visited on this list, and every mega resort on the Strip, exists because the Mirage proved it was possible. It was the father of them all. But in the new corporate Las Vegas, respect for history is a liability. In July 2024, the doors were locked for the final time. The iconic volcano, which mesmerized tourists for 35 years, did not just go silent. It is being demolished. And for what? To be replaced by a generic guitar hotel for the Hard Rock brand. This is the final, brutal lesson of our documentary. You see, in the eyes of private equity firms and corporate boards, legacy has a value of 0 on the balance sheet. Memories do not pay dividends. The death of the Mirage sends a terrifying signal to every other property in this city. If the Mirage, the most significant, beautiful, and historically important resort of its era, can be erased simply to boost a stock price or rebrand a portfolio, then what chance do places like the Rio or Excalibur have? If the king can be killed, the peasants are doomed. The erasure of the Mirage marks the official end of the golden era of Las Vegas. We have moved from a city built by visionaries who wanted to wow you, to a city run by accountants who want to extract from you. The soul of the city did not die of old age. It was murdered for profit. So, as we look at the dust settling on the Strip, we are left with one final question. In this new era of billion-dollar debts and zero maintenance, is Las Vegas still a dream worth visiting? Or is it just a trap waiting to snap shut? These 5 properties are not just unlucky. They are symptoms of a systemic corporate takeover. The Las Vegas built by visionaries is dead. It has been replaced by private equity firms that see you as an asset to be extracted, not a guest to be entertained. To them, these casinos are no longer resorts. They are simply depreciating structures sitting on appreciating land. The execution of the Mirage proves that nothing is sacred. If the resort that invented modern Vegas can be erased for a stock bump, the rest are just waiting for their own demolition dates. If you're tired of seeing history destroyed for profit, subscribe to the channel. And please share your stories in the comments, because in this new era, your memories are the only things they cannot bulldoze. Until next time, watch your wallet.